With the deadline approaching, the world is waiting to hear whether Hamas will accept Donald Trump's peace plan for Gaza. It includes the return of Israeli hostages and the recognition of the Gaza Strip. Trump says that he received Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's seal of approval for his 20-point plan when the pair met recently. But since then, Israel's offensive in Gaza shows no sign of slowing down. Trump has given Hamas days to sign the deal, but a lot is at stake for the militant group if they do.
Donald Trump says Hamas better decide quickly whether it accepts or rejects his peace plan proposal for Gaza.
We're going to do about 3 or 4 days. We'll see how it is. All of the Arab countries are signed up. The Muslim countries are all signed up. Israel's all signed up. We're just waiting for Hamas. And Hamas is either going to be doing it or not. And if it's not, it's going to be a very sad end.
When asked if there was room to negotiate, the U.S. president responded, "Not much." But if Hamas accepts the deal, it would mean accepting its own demise, a simple yet stark choice for the Palestinian militant group established in 1987, which is designated a terrorist organization by the U.S., UK, EU, and many other countries. Washington's 20-point proposal includes several explicit and implied clauses relating to Hamas, including the very first, which states, Gaza will be a de-radicalized, terror-free zone that poses no threat to its neighbors. Hamas members who agree to disarm will be granted amnesty or safe passage out of Gaza. It goes on to say, Hamas must agree never again to have any role in the governance of Gaza in any form, and all offensive military infrastructure, including tunnels, will be destroyed and not rebuilt.
They're really at a fork in the road moment. If they reject it, it will lead to the continued sort of pulverization of Gaza, the displacement of Palestinians. And if they accept the proposal, obviously, it will be an existential moment for them as a group.
Hamas negotiators, who were not consulted on the plan, are in the Qatari capital studying the U.S. proposal, along with officials from Turkey, Egypt, and Qatar.
Now, as we said, we're in the consultation stage with the delegation of Hamas negotiators. I don't think it's logical to begin implementing the plan before there is consensus on its final form, based on Hamas's responses.
And as the world waits for those responses from Hamas, Israel is pressing ahead with its offensive. According to the Gaza-run Health Ministry, more than 66,000 Palestinians have been killed since Hamas carried out its cross-border attacks on Israel 2 years ago, triggering the war.
And let's get more now. We are joined by Andreas Krieg, fellow at the Institute of Middle Eastern Studies at King's College London. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I'd just like to remind everyone that in this U.S.-backed deal, Hamas would need to agree to the release of Israeli hostages, leave power in Gaza, and disarm in return for the release of Palestinian prisoners and an end to the fighting. I mean, this is a virtual surrender for Hamas. How do you expect that it might respond?
It's a very complex situation, as you already said in your little clip there. It's a complete they're kind of between a rock and a hard place, if you think about it. On the one hand, if they don't agree to it, then we will see a continuation of this genocidal war that is obviously a war of annihilation against Palestinian people. On the other hand, if they do agree, it might be the end of the political party and obviously definitely the militant wing in Gaza. But, there might be sort of a gray space here, and I think this is where a lot of it could potentially develop. And obviously, there are divisions within the movement itself. We've got those that are based in Qatar, the political leadership that have shown readiness, and they were prepared in the past to surrender governance to at least a Palestinian and different Palestinian authority. They were able and willing to say that they might even disarm and leave the Gaza Strip if they get amnesty. So there is a readiness there. The problem is whether this can be translated to the ground, whether you obviously have the militant wing that has borne the burden of this conflict for the last 2 years, who now are asked within 3 days to go from 100% counterinsurgency, high-intensity combat to complete dissolution, which is very unlikely. And then you've got the Palestinian Islamic Jihad as well, who are not necessarily linked to Hamas, who think that whatever deal Hamas is agreeing to is not binding to them. So if you put this all together, it's a very sort of complex situation.
Right.
However, I think the plight of the Palestinian people is something that Hamas understands as something that they want to avoid. They want to avoid further bloodshed.
Yeah, and as you mentioned there, Hamas would argue that this is a genocidal war. Israel obviously would not. It would strongly refute that. Much of Hamas's top leadership, we know, has been wiped out by the Israeli offensive. Where does that leave their negotiating position?
Now, those who are who've resided in Turkey, who are now studying the plan in Qatar, they have limited sway over those on the ground. It's a very difficult, very different political leadership than the one that we've had a couple of years ago that had, a lot of leverage over those on the ground. And I think that will make it so much more difficult. I expect the leadership in Qatar to come back and say, we're willing, because of all the pressure from Muslim and Arab countries, to negotiate this. We will not accept a dictate, but we will accept an amended form of this. And I think there is a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to governance and also when it comes to disarmament.
So then let's talk a little bit about that wiggle room, because, I mean, it was very interesting to hear Trump earlier saying that all the Arab nations are on board. But if we really break this down, we're looking at Qatar, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the UAE and other Arab countries. They are indeed backing the plan, but they want to work out a final version that includes, and I'm quoting here, full Israeli withdrawal in Gaza, as well as a clear path to a Palestinian state that integrates the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Do you see any scenario where Netanyahu would agree to that?
No, obviously, he's very blunt. He said there will be no Palestinian state and there will be no total withdrawal from Gaza, at least not in the short to mid-term. I think what we need is some sort of clear timeline of when what is going to happen. We need to understand how far the IDF is going to withdraw and in what time frame. And these time frames have to be binding, and we have to have the Trump administration giving guarantees to Hamas that this will eventually happen. Because obviously Hamas is not only agreeing to its dissolution, but also surrender of all its bargaining chips, which are the hostages. So there needs to be a clear pathway for the IDF to withdraw, and then obviously for an international stabilization force to come in. And the pathway to Palestine is something that for the Arab states in particular is extremely important. The idea here is this is a raison de parler. This is a commencement. This is a beginning of a negotiation process that can take different shapes or forms. It's about now making sure that the war ends and then that people can return to their homes, and then we build from there on a political solution. This is as good as it gets. The countries were saying to Hamas, this is as good as it gets, and there won't be any better offer on the table.
Andreas Krieg from the Institute of Middle Eastern Studies at King's College London. Thank you.